Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you all like it, please like and subscribe, and hope you all enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day. Hey y'all, hope you all are having a good day today. Today we are going to do a video on the Boston Tea Party. Now I know that we're doing this a little later than I would have liked. Last weekend was December 16th, 2023, but the actual of course, this was like the 250th anniversary last weekend. So unfortunately, I was not able to make this video at that time. So I'm doing this now. But the original Boston Tea Party, the actual event, what we know today, happened on December 16th of 1773. But anyways, unfortunately, I'm not at the Boston Harbor. I just found the best convenient location for the time being to kind of supplement that. But anyways, now I know that I'm doing this video a little later than I had liked, as I mentioned, but I guess better late than never. And lastly, I'm going to try my best to not to drag this video on for 4 hours, because we all know that is most certainly possible, but certainly unneeded. But I do promise that I will make this as short as I can, while still covering some key points. So the Boston Tea Party was a very significant political protest, or variation of that, that happened on December 16th of 1773, in our very own Boston, Massachusetts. And as you can imagine, all those American colonists were very frustrated and extremely mad at England, at this point, and of course, the reasoning behind it was because they were imposing taxes and stuff, and a few other little things, I guess it's the whole taxation without representation thing. But anyways, as a way to take their frustrations out and I guess, quote, stick it to the British, of course, they proceeded to dump about 342 boxes of tea that were imported by the British East Indian Company right straight into the harbor. This event was actually one of the first major acts of defiance, against the British control over the colonists, of course. And it was it pretty much showed the British that the colonists would certainly not put up with the whole taxation without representation and the whole British overreach. I guess that you could probably put it that way, but I guess that the whole thing did, the whole thing did rally most of the colonists across the 13 colonies to fight for independence. So anyways, to answer some of your initial questions, yes, the Boston Tea Party was more than just smashing boxes of tea, and other destructive behaviors. It was also because a lot of the colonists were mad, and they didn't, like how the government or the British were imposing policy that was overreaching in the whole taxation without proper representation. So they took their anger, of course, out on the best way that they could, and dumped some of the British's wonderful tea into the harbor. So that is what the Boston Tea Party was. But with all that being said, let's address the elephant in the room and go a little deeper into why did the Boston Tea Party happen. So in the late 1760s, the British were in some pretty significant debt. So the Great British Parliament imposed a series of taxes on all the American colonists to help pay for the, some of those debts. Some of those taxes that were imposed was the Stamp Act, which put in place about 1765, which virtually taxed every piece of printed paper that was used, such as playing cards and business licenses and newspapers, legal documents, and among a few other little things and stuff. And then, of course, you have the Townshend Acts of 1767, which went a little further by taxing other things such as paint, paper, glass, lead, and tea. And the British government felt that these taxes were fair, since much of the day that they had accumulated was earned fighting wars on behalf of the colonists. And of course, the colonists disagreed, and said that, whatever. But but they were understandably mad at being taxed without having any representation in British Parliament, and felt it was wrong for England to impose these taxes on them to gain revenue. And then, of course, you have things like the Boston Massacre and other things that enraged the colonists. I actually have a video, and kind of to kind of go back on something, is I do have a video on the Boston Massacre, interesting fact, actually, after a while, the tea started to be smuggled in, actually. And of course, this caused the East Indian Trading Company to have a bunch of surplus tea and to actually almost go bankrupt. So the price of the Dutch tea was lower, but after a while, even the price of the Dutch tea that was being smuggled in ended up surpassing the cost of the tea that was being sold by the East Indian Trading Company. Now, of course, you're probably asking, was the Boston Tea Party the only protest that happened of its kind? The answer would be no. Of course, they were not the only. Of course, they were not nearly as well known as the original Boston Harbor Tea Party protest on December 16th of 1773 protest. But of course, that other protests occurred actually in other places such as Maryland and Charleston, South Carolina, and among other little incidents here and there. But other places had protests as well, but can't remember the rest. I'll have to include that in the video description as well. So check that out as well in the link or the video description. But anyways, let's address another point in all this. All this wouldn't mean anything if I didn't mention the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty were pretty much just a group of colonial merchants and tradesmen who came together, among other people, who came together to protest the Stamp Act and other type of taxation. This wonderful group of people, or should I say revolutionists, included some pretty significant people, such as Benedict Arnold and Patrick Henry and Paul Revere, as well as Adams. So the Sons of Liberty, who was led by Adams, held meetings and rallies against the British Parliament, and also protested the Griffin's Wharf arrival at Dartmouth, and a British East Indian Company ship that was conveniently carrying tea. But by December 16th of 1773, the Dartmouth had also been joined by her sister ships at this point, the Beaver and Eleanor, and all three ships just so happened to be loaded with tea from China. But that morning, where several thousands of these angry colonists, came together at the wharf and its surrounding streets, a meeting of sorts was held at this Old South Meeting House, where a large group of colonists voted and decided to refuse to pay the taxes on the tea or allow the tea to be unloaded, stored, or sold or used. So they prevented that from happening. And interestingly enough, the ships were actually built in the colonies and owned by some of the colonists. And of course, the wonderful Governor Thomas Hutchinson refused to allow the ships to return to Britain in order the tea tariff to be paid and ordered the tea to be unloaded. But of course, the colonists refused, and Hutchinson never offered a satisfactory compromise of this, which leads to the protest. So that night, a large group of the colonists, many of whom were reportedly members of the Sons of Liberty, allegedly disguised themselves in Native American garb, decided to board the docked ships and throw approximately 342 chests of tea into the water. As you can imagine, the area was crawling with British ships, but nobody seemed to stop the protests, much less pay them any mind. Well, none of this sounds salty at all, but I guess whatever, it is what it is. Anyways, although the group was actually led by Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty, and it was organized by John Hancock, I guess a few of the names of the individuals involved in the Boston Tea Party are still currently unknown. So I guess no one really fessed up to, who did what really, and stuff. But I guess because of the Native American outfits that were being that they were wearing. Only one of the actual individuals was arrested, I guess, from my understanding. But I think that is I think that the guy's name that was arrested or did get in trouble was a man named, I guess, Francis Ackley, if I'm pronouncing that right. I guess even after the Revolutionary War, most of the participants refused to reveal their names, thinking that they could still face civil and, of course, criminal charges, as well as condemnation from elites for the destruction of the private property. But I guess it's one of those things. Well, anyways, I sure as heck hope you all liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and please share the video with other people that might appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day.
One at a time. Toss the case. Don't do it!
Huzzah! Huzzah!
Who else? Who wants some team? Freeze it!